am Whitney from the RDI Network, and this is a 2021 RDI conference, pre-conference event, and I'm really happy to introduce Kim to start off the event.
Thank you very much, Whitney, and good day, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. Sorry I'm holding my microphone up, but it's just so that I can have my best possible sound quality. And with the session today is really introducing you all to the Toksave Pacific Gender Resource, to learn the gender research her story, to hear some insights about gender research, to understand more about the features of Toksave and how we can all engage with the Toksave resources and community, the new home for Pacific gender research. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you all to this event. I'm Kim Robertson, the Pacific Community's Gender Statistics Advisor and a member of the reference group that has guided the process for the website development. Without further ado, we have an hour for today's session, and during which 3 eminent scholars based at universities across the Pacific region and who are also members of the Toksave reference group will each have about 10 minutes to speak about this new resource and gender research in the Pacific more broadly. This will be followed by time for questions and discussion. Our first speaker is Yvonne Tiruki-Rangi o Tangaroa Underhill-Sem, an Associate Professor of Pacific Studies at Te Wanga o Waipapa, the School of Maori Studies and Pacific Studies at the University of Auckland. She has had a distinguished academic career as a Pacific geographer and has been a champion of Pacific gender research as the director of the New Zealand Institute for Pacific Research, co-chair of the advisory group on research of the Pacific Women Shaping Pacific Development Program, and as an inaugural member of the Toksave Pacific Gender Resource Reference Group. Associate Professor Underhill-Sem will talk to us about the origins of Toksave, what it is, its vision, and how it has come to be. Over to you, Yvonne. Thank you.
Kia ora ana ki tātou katoa tō, and kia ora from from Auckland in New Zealand. And first, I'd just really like to thank Kim for that warm introduction, but also RDI Network for giving us a space to talk a little bit more about this particular initiative. I also want to thank, and I'm along with all scholars, academics, we have a lot of people around us, our colleagues, our students who continue to invigorate us and inspire us to provide research and resources in a way that they can use for their own journey. So I really want to thank colleagues and friends past and present who have been involved in this process. 3 things I just really want to speak to about. I want to talk a little bit about how this research project came to be, a little bit more about the issue of gender equality, and something about the vision that we had for this project. So for many people, research has got a little bit of an odd ring to it in the Pacific. There's always been research undertaken in the region, but for many people, it doesn't inspire the same kind of insights that we need to translate that into policy shifts and intervention that make a difference. Arguably, for many Indigenous people, it's really just a dirty word when we do research. And as somebody who is doing a lot of research in this area, it's something that we try to address all the time. But what's become quite exciting is that there are new generations of people who are undertaking research in places where they belong, in languages that they're more comfortable with, and using methods that are new and innovative. And though that kind of research actually has been around in the Pacific for a very long time. It's also been undertaken by many people who are of the Pacific or with close connections to the Pacific, but that research is often not what we say discoverable. we stumble across it in lots of ways. We stumble across it sometimes as a researcher, sometimes in teaching. We stumble across it in a variety of places, but it's very hard to know where to get that research and therefore know how to understand the insights that come from that. So the group of people that have been working on this have been aware of this for some time, and we were very excited to know that there is this new understanding of research that's coming through. And in particular, we're excited because all of us have been particularly concerned about the stubbornness of gender inequality in our region. Despite all the interventions, despite a lot of research and a lot of commitment, we still, unfortunately and sadly, to this day, are facing the impacts of gender inequality, with people's the loss of life of many women that is preventable. That is that's less of a good news story. But in 2014, a group of Pacific feminist scholars, policymakers, and researchers met at the University of, actually, I'm not quite sure, met in Suva, and decided it was time that we really needed to consolidate our learnings, to make a lot of this research a lot more available, actually to understand how much is there. And so they commissioned, or they worked with Pacific Women Shaping Pacific Development, and convinced them that a useful thing would be to do a little bit of a check of what research has been done. And that led to a project that I was delighted to lead with three of my other colleagues, Dr. Asnati Leki Chantung, Dr. Evelyn Masters, and Dr. Sarah Penny. And so we did a bit of a scoping around what research is available, where it is. It was just the beginning, but it was enough for us to move into a symposium at the University of South Pacific, I think about 2016. And at that symposium, we had about 100 women who were involved, and women and men who were involved in gender research of a variety of kinds, meeting at USP. And one of the things that came out of that meeting was to try and find a way to have this material discoverable, and for people to be able to contribute to it. Out of that meeting in 2016 came a call to have an advisory group on research, which was part of the Pacific Women Shaping Pacific Development. And in that particular group, Nicole Haley was a member at that time, Kim was a member, and several others of our colleagues were members. Margaret became a member of that group, but just to mention a few others who were involved, Professor Betty Lovi, Dr. Claire Slatter, I'm going to miss a few of them, but I'm just aware of the time. We also had, and this information I think is also on our website. Anyway, I think for 2 years we met as an advisory group on research, and it took us some time for us to consolidate our thinking about the need for this particular portal. So I'm particularly delighted that from those early days in 2014, from USP through to the way in which we worked in the advisory group on research to develop both the imperative to advance this, to secure funds to do this, and also to secure the expertise. And you'll hear more about that as we go through. So that's how we landed on this. The vision of the portal was always about trying to identify Pacific gender research, to identify it and make it discoverable to people beyond those who just have access to academic work. We wanted it to be discoverable because we felt it provided insights for policymakers and for researchers to learn about. We also, another vision was to be able to highlight the variety of research that's undertaken. It's not all in that scholarly academic canon. There are lots of other ways in which research has been, or insights and knowledge and learning has come from more capacious understandings of what research is. So we wanted to bring that to be discoverable as well. And thirdly, our vision really was to have new generations of researchers to be able to engage with what has come before, but also to provide their insights and their ways of doing things. So those were the three major visions that we had, and I'm gonna stop here because my colleagues have got more to add to that. but really delighted that this was a journey, but we've got there, and we've got there through our colleagues' hard work and visions. I'll leave it there, Kim.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. And if you have any questions for Yvonne, please put them in the chat box, and we'll try to get to them during the Q&A at the end of our little talanoa session. Our next speaker is Dr. Margaret Mishra, a senior lecturer and deputy head of the School of Law and Social Sciences at the Suva campus of the University of the South Pacific. Her research focuses on feminism in the Pacific, indentured women's activism, and minor history. Prior to her position with USP, Margaret taught ethics at the Fiji National University and gender studies and literature at Victoria University in Melbourne, Australia. Margaret is an inaugural member of the Toksave Pacific Gender Resource Reference Group. And we're delighted to have Margaret with us here today. Dr. Mishra will share her views on the role of research in addressing gender inequalities in the Pacific and why it is important for quality and ethical research to be accessible. Thank you, Dr. Mishra.
Thank you, Kim. I'd like to begin with a little anecdote that highlights why this portal is so special. In my closet lies an old shoebox. Inside the shoebox are 12 cassettes wrapped in tissue paper. They are nearly 20 years old. Stored within the cassettes are interviews with women activists from Fiji. The interviews were part of my PhD research on the women's movement in Fiji. The activists I spoke to included Shamima Ali, Shaista Shamim, Vanessa Griffin, Sharon Bhagwan-Rolls, Amelia Rokutuvuna, Claire Slater, Shona Smiles, Ruth Lechte, Susan Parkinson, and Penny Moore. Some of these women continue to fight for our rights in Fiji and across the Pacific. Others have passed on, and we will always remember and celebrate their achievements. Now, for many years, I've been looking for a home for the voices in my shoebox. I have published several journal articles based on the transcribed interviews for my PhD. But I know the value of these primary articulations, and I feel that they could benefit researchers, practitioners, and students, and they should be preserved. Now, I think I found a dwelling place for them, Toksave Pacific Gender Resource. So what is the role of research in addressing gender inequalities in the Pacific? Research, and referring back to Yvonne's definition, and here we were including a range of materials and sources like interviews, policy and evaluation documents, oral histories, archival records, stories, poems, paintings, book chapters, journal articles, and even voices from my shoebox, can play a critical role in addressing gender inequalities in the Pacific. When we talk about our lived experiences using a range of approaches, we can generate awareness and foster dialogue around gender issues that may be specific to the Pacific. And here, I really want to stress that Toksave is a resource that brings together research that studies the production, reproduction, and resistance to norms that produce inequality between all genders. By having access to resources about men, women, and LGBTQI communities, we can better understand how gender is performed and woven into our everyday lives. When we are informed through research that is relevant to our lives, we are in a better position to critique the structures and the practices that contribute to our oppressions. Some of us may also draw on qualitative and quantitative research outputs uploaded on Toksave to advocate for changes to existing policies and laws. We can also learn about methodologies used in the Pacific to improve research processes and enhance outputs. We also hope that Toksave will offer a safe space for us to critically evaluate inequalities highlighted through our research. Through these dialogues, we can bring about change in our homes, our communities, our countries, the region, and the world. Why is it important for quality research to be accessible? I often receive emails from university students and friends from NGOs who want to access my journal articles, but don't know where to look. Now I can direct them to Toksave, and if an important resource they wish to access is not there, we can follow the steps outlined in the portal to upload it. Having quality research in one place saves time, but also brings together people who want to study gender issues in the Pacific. High quality research that is ethical, and as a teacher of ethics, I like to emphasize this point, can stand up to scrutiny and be used to inform laws and policies that relate to gender. And when quality research is easily accessible, it can also promote capacity building and provide opportunities for communities of practice to emerge in the Pacific. When we share their work in one place, other researchers, practitioners, and policymakers can quickly access knowledge and information that is regionally and internationally relevant. I can see Toksave becoming an important resource for students at the University of the South Pacific and throughout the Pacific. If you're studying gender, history, sociology, anthropology, development studies, climate change, science, social work, politics, or ethics, for example, you can find research on Toksave that you can cite or be inspired by. I'm delighted to be part of this discussion here today. I know it's taken some time, and I remember one of our Fijian activists, Noli Nambulivo, saying with some urgency at a consultation for this portal a few years ago now, and I hope I'm quoting her correctly. She said, "I'm nearly 50 now, and I want this portal to be up in my lifetime." Well, we finally got there, and I think the challenge for us now is to ensure that Toksave continues to be a living space for our research and for the communication of news and events relating to gender in the Pacific. We warmly invite you to join us in enriching this resource by filling it with voices that belong to us. Binaka. Over
Thank
to you,
you.
Kim.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mishra. And please, a reminder to everyone, send your questions through the chat box, any queries or questions that you might have. Our final speaker today is, we will be hearing from Professor Nicole Haley, a political anthropologist with more than 25 years research experience in the Pacific. Through a series of initiatives, including the successful bid for the Australian National University to work with others in the region to build the Toksave Pacific Gender Resource, Nicole has worked to overcome the structural educational disadvantages that researchers in the Pacific region face by building a pipeline for the development of research skills. This leadership was recognised by the ANU executive when she was named a 2021 finalist for the Claire Burton Award for Excellence in Equity and Diversity. So congratulations, Nicole. Professor Haley will show us what the Toksave Pacific Gender Resource looks like and discuss the role of universities in the initiative. So she'll be guided by a PowerPoint slideshow. Thank you. Over to you, Nicole.
Thanks, Kim, and thanks for that lovely introduction. And thanks, Whitney, for sharing the slides there now. So, look, as Kim said, I'm just going to show you what the Toksave Pacific Gender Resource looks like and sort of walk you through some of the aspects of it. key things here. So this is the homepage that you'll see when you log on to Toksave Pacific GenderNet. And I've highlighted some key things here. So firstly, you can access information on the website in two ways. So either by scrolling down the page, which I actually can't show you because this is a PowerPoint, or from the banner at the top. And so it's been designed in this way so people can access it through a range of devices. So if you are accessing it on a computer, you can use it in particular ways, but it can also be accessed quite easily on a handheld device or a smartphone or something like that. So first of all, I'd like to encourage everybody who is conducting research on gender or is simply just interested in gender research to sign up and become a Toksave member, because this will allow you to access the member only parts of the website. And as our earlier speakers had said, we really want this to be a safe space where people can ask questions and share information and you know, sort of comment on research in a critical sort of way. But we want a community where that can happen, you know, sort of safely and constructively. So at the top of the screen there, you'll see, oh no, going back, sorry, stay on that slide. So at the top there, there's a sign up button. So obviously that's where you go if you want to sign up for it. You can find the research that's in the website, again, by accessing it in two ways, through the research tab at the top of the page, or obviously through the big Find Gender Research button right there in the middle of the page. So you can click on that. You can also submit research that you've done or research that you found that's not on the website, etc. And you can do that through the Submit Now function. And obviously you can join in the discussions, and you get to those through the tab there at the top. You can search for information through the portal in a number of ways. So there's a function, so you can search by keyword or author if you're looking for something specific, but equally you can just filter everything that's in the portal, either by way of a particular category, say health or history or politics, or you can actually select an individual Pacific Island country and then access the entire suite of research that's been tagged as being relevant to that particular country. So if your success is so you put in a search and it's successful, it comes up with a number of things, you'll get a list of you know, resources where you'll see the title of the piece, a short précis, and the authors. If you then click on a particular resource that you're interested in, you'll see what comes up on the next slide here. So Whitney, if we can have, yeah, there we go. So once you've selected a resource that you want to find a little bit more about, you'll get this sort of page. And then what you see is at the top, it lists the title of the piece. Underneath that, the authors who've done it. If the author is a member of the Toksave website, you'll see there at the number 10, there's a link to the person's profile if you want to contact them, have a conversation about the research, find out more. Beneath that, we get this sort of a little bit longer sort of précis or abstract of the piece, tags there at number 8. So when you submit a piece of research, you can select any number of tags that you think are relevant for the particular article. And that's obviously quite useful, because if somebody goes in and searches and wants to see everything that's to do with the environment, it will direct them on the basis of those tags. Beneath that, what you'll find there where I've got the number 9 is the external link. So sometimes the articles are sitting on open source platforms elsewhere, and that's where we will have the link. Sometimes it may be a link to a PDF article or something that an individual has uploaded, or it's some sort of resource. As I said at the top, if the authors happen to be members of the Toksave community, you can access and learn more information about the authors. And then at the bottom of that page, you've got the opportunity to share the resource that you found through various social media platforms, or simply email it to yourself, email it to somebody else that you think might be interested. The next slide shows you the screen where you can submit your own research. So if you're on that first page and you hit the Submit Now button, it'll take you through to here. And so as individual researchers or authors or people interested in gender research, you can submit relevant research products here. Again, it's quite straightforward. So you submit the title, the year of publication, the authors, the publisher, the country. So that's a drop-down menu there for you. So you can select as many countries as the article is relevant to. The categories and tags are there, both again, drop-down menus. So for instance, in terms of the categories and the tags, there's a fixed number of them, but quite a lot for you to choose from. At number 15 there is another drop-down menu, and that's where you can select the type of article. So if it's a journal article, or it's a book, or a book chapter, or an unpublished report, we really want to encourage researchers and people who've been involved in, sort of writing, a whole lot of grey literature, in a sense, to if they're able to make that accessible through the site, because often, a whole lot of research is undertaken in that way. It's commissioned for, some sort of research report or something. I know here at DPA, myself and my colleagues, obviously when we're asked to do research of that kind, we try to negotiate that from the outset, the ability to make those reports and those documents published. And the research that we do ourselves is obviously available through open source platforms, and we can, we've already uploaded a lot of that to the site here. Underneath, once you've selected type, you can put a short abstract in of the article. Really importantly, here at number 16, we ask you whether the particular piece of research has been peer reviewed or not peer reviewed, or maybe you don't know, and to declare that the work is available to be shared through open access or under the terms. So that's important. There are a number of categories of research, like types of research. So obviously like peer-reviewed journal articles and things like that, where they've already been through, I suppose, a peer review process of sorts. And so they will be uploaded automatically. In the case of other pieces outside of that, or where we're not absolutely sure whether we have whether we can be uploading that, those resources will be referred to the steering committee first, just to make sure that what we're making accessible for everybody is quality gender research, and research that has been undertaken ethically, and things as well. So there are a few checks and balances there. and things that we're working through. And then obviously it's quite simple, either provide an external link to the article or to literally just drag the file and drop it in there. So, and obviously the more things that people put in there and share, the greater this resource is going to be. We certainly, as a collective and as a group of scholars, have worked to bring this together. And it did, as Yvonne said, at the outset, is very much a response to, what researchers in the Pacific were asking for at these, sort of earlier events and things. So we want it to be, useful. But obviously, the more people that get involved and sign up and start sharing research through this mechanism, it will become a much more robust, useful sort of resource for everybody. The next slide is basically a picture of what the discussion page looks like. And as I said, the discussion part of the website is only accessible by members. The process of joining is quite simple, but we just obviously want to make sure that, that people who are coming, we don't want, just strange people commenting on the, we want this to be a really constructive place where people can, sort of have genuine conversations and inquiries and share, sort of share resources and things. So we'd really encourage people, if you join up and if you have questions. I know as researchers, we often reach out to each other around, oh, do you know anything about XYZ, or has anybody written about this? And this is a space where we hope, if you can't necessarily find what you're looking for through an immediate search on the website, there's obviously the option of reaching out to the broader community that is Toksave to see what research is out there. This is just an example of a discussion that was initiated by one of my colleagues, Lindy Kennan, who's been very instrumental, along with Sonia Palmieri and Hannah McMahon, in doing all the, I suppose, back office support and driving this process here at the ANU in terms of getting the website up and established and things. Anyway, Lindy's initiated a discussion here, and that's being contributed to by Judy Putt, and Lindy and Judy work together on a project on family protection orders in PNG. You can see that even the discussion has tagged some latest research, and it's tagged some thematic areas there. So, and then finally, just again, sort of everywhere on the website, you'll see these links to sign up if you're not a member. And as I said, we really encourage people to do so. And then here, just on the final slide, we've got some key addresses and ways to reach the site. So the other thing I was asked to talk about was the role of the universities in this. And so one of the things, and I think it certainly was mentioned earlier, this process, this activity has been, sort of overseen by a steering committee that involves academics and from across the region, as Yvonne mentioned. So people who are working in this space and committed to this space. We certainly had some seed funding for development of the website through Pacific Women Shaping Pacific Development. And we had some funding support from the ANU in terms of staff support to get this up and running. But obviously now sustainability is a key issue, and that's going, I think to for the website or the portal, the resource to fulfill the ambitions that we have for it. It requires people to join and to participate and to help create the space that was envisaged or envisioned in those earlier meetings. So Kim, I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks, Nicole. Thank you so much. So I've just put a little message to you all in the chat box. Our speakers were really confined to speaking about some specific aspects and elements of Toksave. So if you've got a question, please enter it, and our panel members will answer. One of the issues that came up when we did a similar presentation a couple of months ago was looking at some of the barriers to research. So Yvonne, perhaps I'll pose this question to you again. How do you think Toksave will address some of the structural barriers to quality gender research production in the Pacific? And really, what are some of the opportunities that we have now? Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. And I really do encourage any other questions. We've all been fairly brief in what we've got to say, and that's partly because it has been a long process and there have been a lot of other people involved. But in terms of what I consider to be some of the structural barriers that a resource like this will have is it does allow for new recognition of new ways of thinking about things. So once we start to pull some of the material that people are talking through, we begin to sort of think again about what we may have taken for granted. What were some of the mainstream ways of understanding, ways of doing things, when we actually have an opportunity to see other people who may both challenge, but also start to rebuild ways of thinking, ways of doing, ways of intervening, ways of undertaking and learning from the communities that they belong in. And we all belong in various ways in different communities. And one of the barriers has often been that if you are in some communities, if you're in the academic community, if you're in a consulting company that's got resources to be able to access that, you are going to have an advantage to learn about this. And what this resource allows us to do is to put a lot of things out there, so that we have an opportunity to learn from a whole range of other people that we may not normally go through. So with that, we're going to get new voices, different people kind of commenting. So I think there's a real opportunity over time, because as we all know, the research that we do, no matter how urgent the problems are, and we all sit in places where we see those urgencies, in terms of a research process, we still need to be quite systematic and robust if we really want to get the kinds of changes and transformations that we're talking about. So I say one way of which we can, this particular portal can help do that, but it's very open. Anybody can get involved, anybody can join. We try to design it keeping in mind a student at one of the regional universities who wants to learn about something. We know libraries are not always well funded, and we wanted to keep it so that that particular student could actually access some of the material. So when we've got our students and when we've got people interested in making those kinds of changes, able to access material, then they're actually being able to stand on different grounds for the arguments. I think the other way in which it does that is it does challenge. It provides opportunities for people to challenge what the mainstreams are. And that's the beginning of structural transformations, when we get that combination of new voices, new experiences, challenging, but also rebuilding what we're talking about. So yeah, I just see a question there from Mayona about the definition of the Pacific, again, in keeping with our understanding of that kind of capaciousness of research. We are also quite broad in the area of who belongs, and actually who is a Pacific researcher. You know, Pacific researchers are Pacific through many different ways. One's heritage, one's background, one's continual engagements, the length of time one may have lived in a place, the kind of family relationships people have. So the idea of the Pacific researcher is equally flexible as our idea of the Pacific, and absolutely diaspora, absolutely our boundaries are very are movable. East Timor, Timor-Leste, you know, West Papua, Easter Island should all be in scope. Our students are working in those areas. We have people interested in our region. We're not putting up those boundaries when they don't exist. So I'll leave it there. There's a few other questions that, Margaret, you might want to take the one from Isabel.
Thanks, Yvonne. Margaret, can you see the chat box there, Margaret? Are you good to go?
Yeah, I'm just having a look from Isabel. Yes. How is Toksave being promoted or highlighted to colleagues and students based in the Pacific? Yes. Well, when the portal was launched initially, we did send out flyers, and it did go through the USB. I know it's been, you know, sent around at USB. We have sent the flyer and the details to our gender studies students. And so within USB, I know there's been a lot of publicity, and I think from what I've heard, quite a few of our staff and students have signed up. But I think, you know, these sorts of discussions that we are having too is, you know, it's really important for us, spaces for us to get across, you know, what the portal is about and so forth. But in terms of other universities and getting across, I understand that this, that our flyer has gone out widely, and I'm sure it's been shared in other, I'm sure Yvonne has sent it around, and colleagues in other universities. Nicole, I would, imagine information is out at ANU too. So yeah, so we are definitely promoting it because it's an amazing resource for our students and for us as researchers, Pacific researchers of gender. Hope I answered your question.
Thanks very much, Margaret. And great to see the comments coming through the chat box. This is a question that's come up before actually about Toksave, so I'll throw this to the panel, and perhaps some of our other ANU colleagues might like to answer. So what about the accessibility functions on the portal for people with disability, and how, I guess, is that going to evolve? I think Nicole or Yvonne, would you like to, one of you like to speak to that, please?
Yeah, thanks, Kim. And certainly this is something that we have been asked before, and it's something that we're very much aware of, and it's something that we're working with the, you know, the developers to try and see how we can make the website more accessible. We'd really encourage people, you know, if they or they know of someone who's experiencing difficulties of any kind, sort of using the website or accessing things on it, to obviously let us know. And that on the slides that we shared, and I'm hoping that Whitney, that you'll be able to make that PowerPoint available to everybody as well, which will have obviously key links there for people. So please do reach out if there are specific issues that we can work to address, but it is something that we very much as the steering committee have discussed, and it's something we're continuing to look at and find solutions to. Yvonne, did you want to add anything?
I do want to add it. I think it has been a consideration all the way through this process, and but I also wanted to sort of remind us that it is still a process. It's not only in process in terms of bringing the material in there, but also to ensure that it does have the functions we want it to do. The whole disability functions, of course, is a huge area. I don't think we've got it 100% right now, but we're not going to stop on that. It will need some more resourcing. These things are changing really quickly. So there is a steering committee for the portal, and it will be a constant kind of issue that we will keep saying, how can we make it more accessible to more people doing different kinds of research? So if you have any ideas, if you have any thoughts, it would be also something one could put in the discussion to say, I just came across this great portal, this is how they're doing it in another space. We're still also keen to learn how to keep enriching this portal. It will only be enriched with activity. And so we're all committed to that. And I think the whole steering committee is. So yeah, absolutely. We are working in that space continually. Kim.
Thank you. Yes, so there's a good plug. If you haven't registered or joined Toksave, please do so now and enrich our conversations and our learning and our ways of being. That would be fantastic. Now I see a question again about some of, I think, our aspirations for where Toksave is going to eventually end up. A general one, a volunteer from the panel, please. Will there be a section with materials and resources such as guidelines on how to conduct quality gender research in the Pacific region, similar to some of the Oxfam guides about economic empowerment? And I know there's other ones out there. So over to the panel, please.
Yes.
I think the short answer is yes. Again, it's, you know, we as you put those things on, it will be incorporated to the whole process that we're learning about. But Nicole, you have some more to say.
I was going to say one of the key categories that we've included is around research methodology. So we would certainly encourage people to, you know, to put up resources of that kind, and they can be tagged in that way so that they can be easily accessed. And, you know, and these are exactly the sorts of things that we envisioned that people would want to be talking about in the discussion forums as well. Like, you know, a place where we can reach out and sort of, you know, talk to others who've dealt with issues, or how did you approach this, or do you know good resources in this space? So as we said, it's a community.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add too that we're hoping that the articles up there themselves, the resources up there themselves will be examples of quality, you know, gender-based research that others can read and learn from. So that's also just what I wanted to add there.
And maybe just one other angle on that is that we also invite people to comment on the value of some of these guides, and sometimes they don't work how, you know, despite the good intentions of those who put it together, they don't work in some places. So we also invite people to sort of provide commentary on how well some of these guidelines worked, or if there was some, you know, modifications, or, you know, so to have that kind of critical engagement with this material as well is just as important as having access to it. So that's the community engagement, and also why we want this to be a safe space, so we can say, actually, that research didn't work so well. I wonder if anybody has another reading on it. Did I miss something? So that's the kind of engagement we'd love to be able to see.
Thanks very much.
Question that I've seen here around, does it just house articles and PDFs? And no, like there's scope to upload an entire range of things, you know, as Margaret sort of said, as a resting place for her cassettes and those sorts of things. Obviously, you know, people can upload images and different things. So again, we're taking a very, having a very broad notion of what constitutes research here. Although we just ask when people are uploading them, you know, to specify what kind of thing it is. It might be a link to a personal blog. It might be links to a published blog. It might be a link to something that's appeared on social media or something that people think might be relevant. So there's a really wide range of things there that we would like to see, you know, sort of brought together in this space.
Thanks, Nicole.
And yes, conference presentations can go on here too. So I saw that question there. So yes, definitely.
Yes, I think it's a very long list of content. I think it took us over an hour one day to go through to highlight all the different types of material. So it is very, very open. Again, the idea is to be open and to get the engagement, to get the material rather than to keep it narrow or focused. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's something that no one wants to happen. Thank you so much, everyone. From our eminent panel members, do you have any final thoughts or reflections before I hand back over to Whitney?
Just a very warm thanks to everybody that's been involved. And I think, you know, I did leave some people off the list of referencing, but I also needed to thank Pacific Women Shaping Pacific Development that enabled this to percolate through their processes. And, you know, I do think that's been useful. And just as I say, it's a dynamic portal. It was always designed to be dynamic. And so keep checking into it, see what's there, add your work, throw your comments in, and we can provide the material, but really it's also about how we use that material in the variety of spaces that we're in. That is another kind of project, but just want to thank my panelists and colleagues. Been really great working with them all the time.
Thanks, everyone. Nicole or Margaret, any final thoughts from you two before I get booted off?
All good here.
Yeah, me too. Just to say that we do invite you all to help us fill up our portal with our voices. And yeah.
Thanks so much. Whitney, back over to you. Thanks, everyone.
My apologies. Thank you so much for that. That is really exciting and absolutely a really timely resource. And I'll be sure to send this to all of our presenters that might be doing work in this space. Thank you again to everybody who has attended this session. This is a pre-conference event, so we would really hope that you can also join us at the actual conference on starting the June 30th with the student forum, and then on the 1st and the 2nd of July. And for those that are just about to go, could you please also just quickly fill out this feedback form that I'm popping into the chat. This always helps us learn about what our members want to hear about and you know, how to do all of our events better for all of you. Thank you again so much, Kim, Margaret, Yvonne, and Nicole. And for everybody else, please hope to see you at the conference. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.